The kitchen roared with life. Metal clanged, voices snapped orders, flames hissed under heavy pans. But in the back, beneath the dim glow of a forgotten heat lamp, the world slowed down. Mrs. Helen, small-framed and steady-handed, unwrapped a faded towel from around an old lunchbox. Her fingers moved with a quiet rhythm, worn by years of repetition. She lifted the lid, revealing nothing extravagant, just a modest portion of warm rice, tangy pickled vegetables, and a single boiled egg resting gently on top. There was a kind of dignity in its simplicity. This was a meal shaped by care, not convenience. Just a few feet away, leaning against the industrial sink, Tom, young, wide-eyed and visibly shaken, clutched his elbows. His lips were pale, hands trembling, as if the cold of hunger had seeped into his bones. Mrs. Helen's voice, soft yet firm, broke through the hum. "You didn't eat again, did you?" It wasn't a question of curiosity. It was knowing. She had seen this before. He shook his head, shame flickering across his eyes. The week had been cruel. Tips were light, and bills were heavier than his pride. Without a word, she reached across the counter and gently pressed the lunchbox into his hands. No scolding, no sympathy speech, just the quiet, defiant gesture of someone who knew that kindness didn't need to be loud to be strong. "Eat slowly," she murmured. "It's still warm." Her voice wrapped around him like a blanket. As he peeled back the lid, a soft cloud of steam rose and curled into the air. For a fleeting second, time bent. The chaos faded. The metallic crash, the shouting orders, the mad rhythm of the kitchen, all of it dimmed. In its place, there was warmth, safety, the kind of comfort that makes you remember you're still human. But comfort, like peace, is often fleeting. Hidden in the shadows near the pantry, a pair of eyes watched, silent and still. A phone camera barely visible was recording, a predator's gaze cloaked in indifference. And then, like a knife slicing through calm, came a voice, booming and harsh. "What the hell is this?" "Hello." The floor manager stormed forward, face flushed with rage, his presence slicing the air like glass. Tom froze mid-bite, his fork suspended. Mrs. Helen didn't move, her hands calmly resting at her sides. But the storm didn't wait. Carl's hand lashed out, knocking the lunchbox clean from Tom's grip. Rice sprayed across the tiles. The boiled egg rolled away, bouncing once before disappearing under the prep table. Carl's voice cracked like thunder. "No outside food, especially not this garbage," he sneered, eyes scanning the stunned crew. "You think this is a street charity? This is a restaurant." Silence gripped the kitchen. Even the fry station went still. The oil sizzled, but no one moved. Tom's head bowed, his breath shallow. Shame bled into his features. Mrs. Helen's eyes fell to the mess, watching the scattered rice like spilled dignity. A few grains clung to the toes of her shoes, her lips pressed tight, not in fear, but in resolve. Carl looked around, smug. "Anyone else want to bring homemade trash in here? Go ahead. Let's see how fast you get fired." His laughter echoed, the kind that reveals more about a man than he wants to admit. But behind him, the camera kept rolling. And from just outside the kitchen, through the narrow glass of the prep line, a woman sitting at table 7 put her coffee cup down. Her face, lined with time and wisdom, tightened as she turned toward the noise. This wasn't normal. This wasn't right. She didn't know the people behind the chaos, but she knew cruelty when she saw it. Quietly, she raised her phone, clicked record. On her screen, the chaos played back in real time. A spilled lunch, an older woman standing alone, and a manager's voice slicing through the air like a whip. Still, no one moved. And yet, something had shifted. Just a little. And that was only the beginning. In the soft yellow light of her tiny kitchen, Mrs. Helen leaned over the counter, eyes focused and gentle. She carefully nestled a boiled egg beside a scoop of warm rice, her movements precise, respectful, like placing flowers on a grave. Every detail mattered. There were 2 containers on the table, one for herself, the other smaller, but packed with the same thoughtfulness. No shortcuts, no leftovers. Same rice, same vegetables, same care. She believed in dignity, even in silence. She reached for her notepad, the one with corners curled from years of use. Tearing off a piece, she scribbled in her distinct, slanted handwriting, "If you're hungry, please eat." No name, no signature, just quiet kindness folded under a lid. An offering, unseen but deeply human. Wrapping the small box in cloth, she slipped it into her worn canvas bag, right beside the larger one. The rice cooker's warmth still lingered in the air, but her fingers were cold. Outside, a siren wailed in the distance. Life kept moving, even when hearts stayed heavy. She glanced at the old clock on the wall. It was nearly time. She set her alarm. 4:30 a.m. again. In the corner of the room, a tiny altar flickered with a trembling candle. Its light danced against a worn photo, black and white, slightly curled at the edges. Her husband, in a delivery cap, smiled faintly, with eyes that had known long hours and little rest. She didn't speak. Her hands folded in front of her, shoulders straight. Reverent. Next to the frame, a faded receipt, the last shift he worked before the accident. A rainy road, a delivery, a break too late. She never blamed the rain, never blamed the car. She just kept going. "Michel Chalouf." "This Michel." She leaned forward slightly, straightening his collar in the photo, as if he could feel it. Then she adjusted the candle. Wax had spilled onto the table again. Her fingers lingered near his face, then slowly pulled away. No tears, just the weight of a love carried in silence. The blue light of her phone brightened the room. A voice cut through the stillness. Young, hopeful. "Hi, Grandma." Her expression changed instantly, softening. "Did you finish your homework?" she asked, eyes twinkling. He held up a crumpled worksheet. "I got an A in math." She clapped gently, her pride quiet but deep. "Good boy." "Did you eat?" she asked, voice dropping into concern. He hesitated. "A little, just noodles." Her face tightened. "That's not enough, sweetheart. Promise me you'll eat properly tomorrow." "I will." She nodded once. "And water, not just soda. Your brain can't grow if your body isn't fed." He giggled, a few teeth missing. Childhood clung to him. The call was short but enough. Before hanging up, she whispered, "Study hard, sleep early. Grandma's okay. Don't worry." The screen went dark. She sat in the quiet after, her smile faint, fading, replaced by something heavier. Her glasses slipped slightly down her nose as she leaned back, and slowly, without realizing, she fell asleep in the chair. The room stayed still. The glow of the phone had vanished. Then, a soft beep. 3:00 a.m. Her eyes opened slowly, adjusting to the dark. Her back ached, legs numb. No groaning, no complaints, just motion. She stood, stretched, and walked toward the sink. She began to rinse the rice. The water turned milky white, memories stirring in every rinse. She peeled eggs, sliced pickled radish, and stacked lunch containers. Her movements were practiced, methodical. She didn't sing. She didn't rush. Only the low hum of the rice cooker filled the air. This was her time, the moment before the world remembered she was there. She packed 2 boxes again, one for herself, one for someone who might need it more. The sky outside was still dark, but inside steam curled softly from the cooker. Her hands tied the cloth with slow, intentional knots, as if she were wrapping a piece of herself into each bundle. A voice came in soft narration, measured, aged, sincere. "I don't have much, but if I still have rice, I will share it. No one should work hungry. No one should feel ashamed for needing help." She wiped the counter clean, clicked off the light, and stepped outside into the black velvet of morning. One meal in her bag, one quiet truth in her heart. The sidewalk was still slick with last night's rain. Streetlights flickered against shuttered shops. Steam rose from the cloth of her lunch bag, trailing warmth behind her as she walked. The weight she carried wasn't just in her hands. At the staff entrance, a security guard leaned against the wall, sipping tea from a chipped mug. "Morning, Mrs. Helen," he said, his voice raspy but laced with respect. She smiled, kind and honest. "Did you eat yet?" she asked, softly. He chuckled. "Later, you always ask." Without another word, she reached into her bag and handed him a small, wrapped bun. "No excuses today," she whispered. He accepted it quietly. They didn't need small talk. Understanding passed in silence. Inside the hallway, the scent of detergent clung to the air, but her presence added something else, a softness, a warmth, like sunlight through a cracked window. She began cleaning, moving from sink to tile with quiet rhythm, her footsteps steady, her back straight. But Carl watched from the corner. He didn't speak at first, just leaned against the wall, arms folded, eyes heavy with judgment. Then, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Looks like someone's trying real hard to impress." She didn't flinch, didn't stop wiping. He stepped closer. "Washing the sink twice? What's next, polishing the mop?" No laughter followed, just silence. Eyes flickered away. No one defended her. No one joined in. She didn't reply, just wrung out her cloth slowly. But her hands, those careful, capable hands, trembled slightly. Enough that only she could feel it. The air thickened with discomfort, and the day had barely begun. Then, something shifted. A small figure approached her by the dish station. Anna, the youngest prep cook, no older than 20, walked slowly, gloves in hand. Her voice was quiet, but certain. "Hey, I just wanted to say thank you." Miss Helen looked up, surprise softening her tired features. Anna smiled, shy but real. And for the first time that day, something warm bloomed in the cold kitchen air. "For the rice yesterday, I didn't have time to eat, and that saved me." Anna's voice came out quiet, but it carried weight. Mrs. Helen looked at her with a soft smile, the kind that came from a place beyond words. "It's just food," she said gently, her tone humble but warm. "But I'm glad it helped." She didn't need thanks. She never did. Anna nodded slowly, her eyes glistening. It wasn't just food. And in that quiet exchange, something unspoken passed between them, a shared understanding that, in a place built on survival, kindness felt like rebellion. The pursuit for care felt like policy, felt like banner, not protest. They didn't speak again. Anna returned to her station, shoulders a little lighter. Mrs. Helen picked up a new stack of plates. The smile lingered on her face, barely visible, but it softened her eyes, her expression, her entire presence. Almost no one noticed, but for Anna, it was everything. And for Mrs. Helen, that was enough. Then came the call. "Mrs. Helen, manager's office." The words landed flat, no tone, no explanation. A server pointed down the hall. She nodded, wiped her hands, and walked quietly toward whatever waited. "Take me away." The office was cold, Fluorescent lights buzzed faintly overhead. Carl sat behind his desk, fingers tapping in impatient rhythm. He didn't offer her a seat. "You've been bringing in food, giving it to the staff." His voice was clipped, accusing. She stood still, hands folded in front of her apron, saying nothing. "That's a violation," he went on. "Health code, liability, against policy." Still, silence. Carl leaned in, voice tightening. "This isn't a family kitchen. You don't get to play mother here." Her eyes dropped to the floor. She didn't react. She didn't defend herself. He waited for a response that never came. "I'm letting you off with a warning," he said sharply. "Next time, it's a write-up, or worse." She gave the smallest nod. Not out of fear, but acceptance. She turned to leave. Behind her, his voice chased her like a slap. "Stick to mops and buckets. That's what you're here for." Later that day, near the break table, Carl spotted something, a lunchbox, neatly wrapped, still warm. He sneered, pulled out his phone. One photo, a few taps, sent it to the staff group chat. "Charity Kitchens Open, who's handing out pity meals today?" The notification dropped like a stone into still water. Phones buzzed in pockets, a few smirks, one stifled chuckle. Most said nothing, but the silence wasn't ignorance, it was fear. Fear of rent, fear of retaliation, fear of being next. Anna saw it, her face tensed. She locked her screen without responding. Carl kept going. "Keep this up, we'll need a donation jar next to the knives." Another message. Another jab dressed as a joke. The lunchbox stayed on the table, untouched, but now tainted, not by its contents, but by the weight of mockery. Marco, a line cook, checked his phone between prepping plates. He read the thread again, then again. His thumb hovered over the reply button, but didn't move. He closed the app. Across the room, Anna scrubbed her cutting board with too much force. Her shoulders were stiff, her mouth pressed into a thin line. Another cook read Carl's words, then quietly slipped his phone deep into his apron. The break room air thickened. People moved slower, more cautious. No one wanted to be seen as taking sides. Carl's jokes weren't just jokes. They were warnings. Mrs. Helen arrived early the next morning, as always. She clocked in, tied her apron, and checked the staff schedule. Her name was missing. Tuesday, blank. Wednesday, someone else. Thursday, not her initials. She checked again, then a third time. Her heart beat a little faster. She stood by the sink, waiting. Maybe it was a mistake. Anna passed by, eyes flickering toward her, but didn't stop. Marco avoided her gaze completely. Finally, Mrs. Helen asked the floor supervisor. He shrugged, barely looking up. "Ask Carl." But Carl was nowhere to be found. She waited 10 minutes, then 30. Still nothing. Quietly, she untied her apron, folded it with care, and placed it on the counter. No one stopped her. No one explained. She left the way she came, quiet, steady, unseen. Only this time, she had no shift to return to. The lunch rush was chaos. Tables packed, orders flying, voices raised. Amid the movement, Mrs. Helen returned. Small container in hand, she walked quietly toward the back, but Carl saw her. He stepped into her path, fast and aggressive. "What's that?" he asked, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Before she could respond, he grabbed the box and tipped it sideways. The rice spilled onto the floor. The boiled egg cracked. He looked at the mess, then back at her with disgust. "Dirty like this. You think anyone should eat that?" Guests nearby froze, unsure. Eyes darted away, pretending not to notice. Mrs. Helen knelt, slowly, carefully, picking up the lid. Carl muttered under his breath, "Disgusting," and walked away. She didn't respond, didn't flinch, just began gathering the rice piece by piece, her hands methodical and gentle, like someone preserving something sacred. The restaurant didn't stop, but the noise shifted. A chair scraped back, forks paused mid-air. No one helped, but one phone, hidden beneath a napkin, was recording it all. The customer's fingers trembled as she held the screen, her breathing unsteady. Mrs. Helen's reflection shimmered in the polished tile, bent, quiet, alone. Someone in the back laughed nervously. Then silence again. The cruelty wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was quiet. It was cruel. It was enough. Anna stood frozen, her fists clenched at her sides, jaw tight. Then, something cracked in her voice. She stepped forward. That wasn't okay. Carl turned, icy. What did you say? Anna swallowed hard. She glanced around. Some staff stilled, pretending to work. He didn't deserve that, Anna said, louder this time. You embarrassed her in front of everyone. Carl moved closer. The warmth in his tone drained, his voice barely a whisper, but weighted with threat. You want to join her, he said, just inches from Anna's face. She blinked, unsure whether to stand her ground or retreat. Plenty of people waiting to take your spot, he continued, venom disguised as casual warning. You want to keep your hours? Then learn your place. Anna didn't speak, but her breath trembled, caught between fear and fury. He leaned in once more, breath cold on her skin. One more word, and you're off the schedule by morning. And just like that, he turned and walked away, leaving her frozen in place. Her cheeks flushed, not from embarrassment, but from the restraint of swallowing her voice. That evening, as the dinner rush wound down, a quiet hum came from the front desk printer. A paper curled out, an internal copy of a customer email. The subject line read plainly, "Concern about staff treatment." The message was short but piercing. I witnessed a female employee being humiliated today. Her food was knocked to the floor. No one showed her any respect. Please address. Carl read it out loud in the break room like it was a punchline. Humiliated, he repeated, chuckling. People get too soft these days. One server glanced over but quickly looked away. Carl dropped the paper on the counter like it meant nothing. Probably some bored lady with too much time and no taste. I'll handle it. He poured himself coffee, calm and dismissive. Customer complaints don't scare me, he said, grinning to himself. Corporate cares about results, not feelings. But the paper didn't disappear. It lay there, white against the metal counter, ignored but not forgotten, especially not by the quiet eyes that never stopped watching. The kitchen was nearly empty, just a few prepping for the next morning. Mrs. Helen stood by the back sink, unwrapping a small cloth bundle. Inside a warm meal, lovingly prepared, rice, egg, pickled greens. Across from her, a young dishwasher leaned against the counter. Barely 19, worn from double shifts, she said nothing, just slid the container toward him with her usual grace. Eat before it gets cold, she whispered. He nodded, too exhausted to say thanks. He didn't need to. But the peace shattered in an instant. Well, Carl's voice scraped the quiet as he entered, arms folded like a schoolyard bully. Didn't we already talk about this? Mrs. Helen looked up slowly, not afraid, just tired. Their eyes met, his gaze full of disdain, hers full of steady resilience. He stepped closer, eyeing the meal like it was a loaded weapon. You think this is noble, he hissed. It's not. It's a problem. The dishwasher froze. No one breathed. Carl's voice dropped an octave, jagged and cold. You're done. Miss Helen didn't flinch. She didn't argue. But she didn't take the box back either. The kitchen doors slammed open as Carl stormed in, louder than the clatter of pans and pots. "You're done," he shouted. "Get your things." Every hand in the room froze. Heads turned. Mrs. Helen stood still, near the mop sink, cloth still in hand, her eyes wide with shock, but not surprise. Carl yanked the name tag from her chest. The plastic cracked as the pin snapped, her name and title stripped away in one sharp motion. "Leave, now, or I call security." She looked around. Nobody met her eyes. No one moved. No one stopped it. She wiped her trembling hands on her apron, then slowly turned toward the locker room, each step deliberate, heavy. At the doorway she paused, a single tear traced down her cheek. But she didn't wipe it away. She left, without her name, without her job, without a single word of defense. Behind her, the silence in the kitchen screamed louder than any slammed pan. That night, a short video quietly surfaced online. Grainy, raw, real. Carl's voice pierced through the static. "You think this is noble? It's a problem." The footage showed it all. The spilled food, the ripped name tag, Mrs. Helen kneeling in silence. It spread like wildfire. Thousands of shares by midnight. She was feeding someone, that was her crime? Who treats their staff like this? I hope this goes viral. By 3:00 AM, local blogs picked it up. By dawn, a hashtag had emerged, "Let her eat." The internet didn't just see. It responded. Comments poured in. No filters, no spin, just outrage, human and honest. "She deserves a raise." Meant should be ashamed. I'm never reading there again. Cancellations started rolling in. One after another. We're canceling our Saturday party. We saw the video. Birthdays, corporate bookings, anniversaries, gone. Review sites exploded. 4.8, 4.1, 3.6. Disgusting behavior. Apologize to her. The restaurant's rating plummeted. In the dim office, Carl sat quietly, scrolling, refreshing the page, reading comment after comment, his smirk gone. On every screen, one still image returned again and again and again. Is Helen kneeling on the kitchen floor, name tag gone, a rice grain in hand, and the world watching. In a downtown boardroom, the air was electric with tension. 10 department heads sat around the long oak table. Phones buzzed, eyes darted, the clip played on the central screen. No sound needed. This wasn't just PR, it was a reckoning. Should have handled it better. One muttered. We've lost 3 major clients. Another added, and 2 press interviews. At the head of the table, Jackson, the CEO, sat silent. Same calm face, same steady hands. Then he spoke. Everyone out. No shouting, no drama, just stillness. Chairs scraped the floor as they left one by one. Jackson stayed alone, watching the final frame freeze on Mrs. Helen's face. The next morning, a staff-wide meeting was called. Every server, every line cook, every dishwasher, all packed into the main dining floor. No one knew why, and Jackson stepped out. No apron, no hat. Ha-ha. Just a mic in hand and the truth in his eyes. My name is Jackson, he said, steady. I'm the CEO of this company. Gasps, murmurs, silence. For the last 2 weeks, I've worked beside you. No title, no office, just watching, listening. He let the weight of that land. And this, what we've allowed to happen, is not who we are. Behind him, screens flickered on. Raw footage played. Carl's voice echoed again. Stick to mops and buckets. You want to join her? Them, Mrs. Helen kneeling. Anna threatened. The truth, unedited. In this time, no one could look away. They saw Carl's smirk. Caught, mid-saying, mid-laugh, as he snapped that photo, oblivious to the weight of his cruelty. The video showed no flashy edits, no soundtrack, just raw moments most believed would vanish unnoticed. But not this time. The CEO remained still as it all played out. Carl sat motionless, pale now. His laugh had vanished. Around him, whispers stirred, quiet shock turning to understanding. This wasn't an isolated mistake. It was a reflection of something long ignored, a pattern now illuminated, and no one could look away. The footage ended. The silence in the room thickened. Jackson stepped forward, his voice softer, more personal. "There's something you don't know." From his jacket he pulled an old, worn photograph. The edges curled, the black and white image faded. "This is my mother." The room leaned closer. She stood behind a sink like this one for 10 years, never asked for more, never missed a day. She used to bring food to younger workers who couldn't afford lunch. He turned the photo toward the staff. "When I saw Mrs. Helen, I saw her." His voice wavered just slightly. The same hands. The same quiet strength. The same grace. When no one was watching. And heavy to say, the room was still. A few bowed their heads. Others wiped at their eyes, unsure why they were crying, until they remembered someone just like her. He held the photo with both hands. "When my mother worked here, someone once shared their lunch with her. Just rice, one egg, a quiet kindness she never forgot. She told me about it on her deathbed. She never knew who gave it to her." He paused, letting the weight of the moment breathe. "But today, I did." His eyes searched the room, finding the empty space where Mrs. Helen used to stand. "And now, it's my turn to return that kindness." A long silence followed. No one clapped, no one moved. Then from the back, a chair scraped. Carl stood slowly, face unreadable, knowing the tide had turned. By noon, a memo was pinned on every board in the building. Subject: Management action pending review. Status: Carl and Gwen suspended indefinitely. The message spread like light through cracks. One by one, every station found out. But instead of cheers, something deeper echoed. A single pair of hands clapped. Then another. And another. Not loud, not for spectacle, but real. The applause was for justice, for the unseen, who were finally seen. Later that day, a letter arrived at the front desk, handwritten, in gentle cursive, to the woman who shared her lunch. "Thank you, you reminded us that kindness doesn't wear a name tag." It was pinned to the staff board, no announcement, no signatures, just reverence. Some read it twice, others simply stood and stared. Mrs. Helen wasn't there, but her presence filled every room. That evening the staff gathered again, this time without formality. No podium, just the CEO standing beside the service counter where Mrs. Helen once cleaned. The recruiters came out, his hand a single sheet of paper. "Starting today," he said, "every staff member will receive one hot meal per shift. No forms, no approvals, no exceptions." A wave of emotion moved across the room. "No one should serve food hungry," he added. "No one should feel shame for needing nourishment." He placed the paper on the counter with care. "This policy is permanent, and it carries her name." He didn't need to say who. Everyone already knew. The clipboard passed down the prep line. At the top, "No one goes hungry here." Not a rule, a promise. Anna signed first. Her hands trembled, but her name was proud. Marco followed, wiping his palms on his apron. Even the night janitor asked for help spelling his name and added it with a shy grin. They taped it above the staff meal station. Beneath it, someone pinned a photo of Mrs. Helen. No caption, no frame, just her laugh, caught mid-shift, eternal now. That day, the staff meals were served differently. No whispers, no stares. Just shared plates and the warmth of finally being seen. A letter arrived by hand at a quiet apartment across town. Mrs. Helen opened it slowly. The seal bore the company logo. Inside, "We invite you back, not as staff, but as something greater." The second page read, "Ambassador of Kindness. A role to remind us what matters most." She read it twice, hands trembling just enough to blur the ink, then placed it gently on the table. Outside, a black car waited, the same kind that once passed her unnoticed. But today, it waited with purpose. When she stepped inside the restaurant, every team member stood waiting. Aprons crisp, eyes full, hands folded over hearts. She didn't speak. She just looked up, toward the staff wall where her photo now hung next to the pledge she'd inspired. For the first time in years, she wasn't part of the background. She was the reason it had changed. In her locker, an envelope waited. No name, just her initials. Inside, lined paper, words crossed out, heart exposed. "I watched everything and said nothing. I was afraid. But when you stood there and never lowered your eyes, I finally found mine. You didn't just share food, you shared courage. Because of you, I spoke up. For you. For me." Helen folded the letter. No tears. Just grace. She placed it in her pocket near her heart. Outside, the kitchen buzzed again. Orders barked, pans sizzled. Life continued. But somewhere in those walls, another voice had been born. And it all started with one quiet act. Someone finally chose to answer. 1 year later, the break room was the same. Same tiles, same coffee machine, but warmer now, fuller. Mrs. Helen sat at her corner table, reading an old note she'd once pinned. A new hire approached, nervous but smiling. She held out a cloth-wrapped lunchbox. "Today," she said shyly, "you eat mine." Mrs. Helen blinked, surprised. "You always gave," the girl said. "Let someone give back." She placed the box on the table, carefully, reverently. Mrs. Helen unwrapped it slowly. Rice, pickled vegetables, a boiled egg. Same meal, same kindness. But this time it was hers to receive. "Thank you, child," she said softly. No speeches, just connection. Some gestures don't need history, just heart, passed forward. The afternoon sun stretched golden fingers across the sidewalk. Mrs. Helen stepped out, coat light, scarf tucked, her steps steady. She paused at the corner, looking up at the restaurant sign. Once she'd mopped its floors. Now she had helped clean something deeper. The silence. The dismissal. The weight no one wanted to name. And now, it was gone. A breeze lifted her scarf. She held it in place, chin high. Some stains wash off. Others take longer. But with time and truth, they all can. She took one step forward, then another, not walking away, but onward, in full knowing of her worth. Inside, a new staff meal was served. And somewhere among the clatter her name still echoed, not loud, but lasting. A screen lit up. Simple white text. A real comment from months ago. "My mom was treated the same. No one ever stood up for her. Watching this, I cried. Thank you." More comments followed, scrolling slowly. "She reminds me of my aunt. That kind of strength doesn't shout, it endures. Respect to the quiet ones who carry more than we see." Then, black screen. Then, the original clip. Mrs. Helen kneeling, gathering rice. But now, every comment gave her silence a voice. She wasn't alone anymore. Her story had become ours. Then, the final message. Have you ever seen someone kind be mistreated? Someone who gave even when they had little? Write their name in the comments. Let them know they were seen. Let them feel they were never alone. And as names began to appear, mothers, uncles, a janitor, a teacher, a stranger on a bus, the story faded, but the hearts stayed open. And in the quiet space that followed, something powerful lingered. One meal, one name, one promise, forever remembered.